Miss. Our project is about climate change and Paris Agreement. It is presented by Mariam Abid, Mahrez Masoud, Ahmed Rajab, and myself. Our outline is composed of first, what is climate change? Second, we will have the definition of Paris Agreement from an economic approach. Third, we will have the advantages and disadvantages of Paris Agreement. And then we're going to talk about and mention the causes of why US dropped out from Paris Agreement. Finally, we will talk about the consequences of this withdrawal.
Okay, so here we have the first objective of the presentation, which talks about climate change, its causes, and its relation to the overall macroeconomics. So, first of all, simply, climate change, also called as global warming, refers to the rise in average surface temperature on Earth. It is caused by changes that occur to the atmosphere, or because of interactions between the atmosphere and other geological, chemical, biological, and geographic factors within the Earth system. It is possible to differentiate between weather and climate change in that the weather is the change of weather within a few hours, while the climate may take hundreds or millions of years to change. Causes of climate change. Scientific researches has proven that human activities hold the main burden of climate change. Such activities may include the burning of fossil fuels, such as oil, coal, and gas, which emits greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, mainly CO2. Other human activities such as agriculture and deforestation also contribute to the emission of greenhouse gases that causes climate change. A real-life example is presented here to illustrate the relation between climate change and macroeconomics, which is the Mediterranean basin. The rapid climate change over the past decades has accelerated the current environmental issues in the Mediterranean basin, which resulted from several synergies, factors such as changes in land use, increased pollution, and a decline in biological diversity. Current changes and future scenarios of climate change indicate significant risks and increased impacts on various important environmental and biological systems such as water, food, health, and security in the upcoming decades.
So, the Paris Agreement entered into force on 4th November 2016 and has been signed by 195 parties. It calls to businesses and investors to quicken the move to a flourishing clean economy by leveraging arrangement certainty and seizing trillions of dollars in speculation openings. Through this understanding, all countries aim to combat climate change and fortify the worldwide reaction to the danger of climate change. Now let's move on to the economic approach. Thanks to this agreement, each 5 long time, governments must re-examine and yield national climate plans, also pursue domestic policies to achieve the objectives in these plans. Now let's move on to the goals. We have 3 main goals. The overarching and interdependent long-term goals incorporated in the Paris Agreement set course toward a flourishing clean economy through the fast arrangement of low emissions and neutral technologies. They consist of resilience goal. Business bounce back and adapt more quickly to events such as natural disasters. We have the financial goal. To direct global finance flows toward low greenhouse gas and climate resilient investment. And we have the temperature goal to seek after stretch target of 1.5 degree and to maintain worldwide warming well underneath 2 degrees over pre-industrial levels. So, to reach these aspiring goals, suitable mobilization and arrangement of budgetary assets, upgraded capacity building, and a modern innovation system is to be put. Hence, supporting activity by creating nations and the foremost defenseless nations in line with their national goals.
Hello everyone, this is Mahrez Masoud and we're going to talk about the advantages and the disadvantages of Paris Agreement. This agreement is consistent of a number of key aspects that serves its main goal, which is a greener future. So what are the advantages and what are the disadvantages? The goal of converting to a more eco-friendly source of power will strongly affect the market, simply because this goal creates new opportunities for markets related to the research for a cleaner source of energy. It boosts economic growth and reduces unemployment. This agreement is also affecting the environment with a lower carbon future, which can be a huge factor in tackling the climate change and global warming. One of the goals is to limit the increase of temperature. This will allow the ozone layer to heal much faster, reduce the emission, and most importantly, reduce the health problems for all species. One of the disadvantages this agreement proposes is that the switching to a renewable source of energy can be expensive and with high barriers, cost-wise and availability. The risk of not being consistent can make this expensive investment not effective. This investment to switch for a more eco-friendly source of power has its high upfront costs, and it is still risky to switch because the availability is limited by multiple factors like the geographic placement. For example, solar energy requires sun, and sun cannot be available 24 hours a day.
There are three main causes for the withdrawal of US from Paris Agreement. First, we have the economic burden. President Trump made the choice to pull back from the Paris Agreement due to the unjustifiable financial burden forced on American specialist businesses and citizens by US pledges made under this arrangement. Trump guaranteed to stop what he sees as economic burden to the United Nations Green Climate Fund. The US has of now paid $1 billion into this finance, with $2 billion more for. Confronted with the choice between complying with Paris and boosting the US economy, the United States admit that growing our economy is going to win. Therefore, his America First energy plan centers on lessening the cost of oil, accomplishing energy independence, tapping household oil sources, and making energy-related jobs by diminishing regulation. In worldwide climate dialogues, the US will proceed to offer a reasonable and down-to-business show appearing development and open markets lead to more noteworthy success, fewer emissions, and more secure sources of energy. The US will proceed to work with its worldwide accomplices to upgrade strength to the impacts of climate change and prepare for and react to common catastrophes. Whereas the US has within the past, it will proceed to investigate, improve, and develop its economy, whereas diminishing emissions. Securing employment. The US approach consolidates the reality of employment and advances cleanly and proficiently counting fossil fuels, atomic energy, and renewable energy. Meanwhile, economic analysis address whether quitting the agreement will make occupations. Securing employment within the oil, gas, and coal businesses, a few financial specialists say might come at the fetch of investments in clean energy businesses that will eventually offer more long-term business.
Hi, so we're going to talk about the consequences of this withdrawal of US from Paris Agreement. We're going to start by the impact on the political reputation and international image of the US. Economists say that whereas there may be a few positive short-term financial impacts, Trump's choice to drag out of the Paris Agreement and not battle to address climate change will most likely have damaged long-term financial results for the US and the world. Actually, not only it will hurt its international image, but also its position as a mindful and responsible nation, but also it would cost the US its leadership position concerning climate change. The withdrawal of US from Paris Agreement received so many negative impacts from worldwide organizations, industry leaders, and city leaders. In fact, the Prime Minister of Germany, Angela Merkel, stated her disappointment from this withdrawal and claimed that the US and the EU will no longer have trust and faith in each other and won't rely on each other no more, telling her citizens and the EU citizens to take their destiny with their own hands. Next, we have the impact on international scientific research. The long-term objectives and universal participation on climate change will be influenced by the constellation of donations from the multilateral natural finance of the US and also the budget cuts. This withdrawal would do harm to the image of the US as the most leading power in worldwide climate research. Next, we have the impact on the climate change response of developing countries. Large developing countries contribute with limited efforts compared to the US, which is unfair. So most basically, they will find themselves due to this withdrawal pressure with so much to do. They will be charged with many more environmental responsibilities and with more financial supports and high technology transfer. The impact on the agreement funding. Due to the budget cuts of the US in terms of funding and donations, the progress in achieving Paris Agreement's goals will be restrained. Actually, in US fiscal year in 2018, the budgets for international activities decreased by 28.7%. We have the impact on the long-term economic development of the US. The withdrawal from the Paris Agreement will improve the US economy for the short, but unfortunately not the long term. If there is no improvement in climate change issues, researchers claim that the US GDP will most probably decrease by 36% between 2016 and 2099. But fortunately, there weren't only negative impacts due to this withdrawal, but there were some few positive impacts for Paris Agreement, because as we know, US was the leader in this Paris Agreement's realization, so most likely it stated few conditions, and with this withdrawal made, the Paris Agreement disposed of these obstacles. This withdrawal will help to preserve jobs also, such as fossil fuel generating industries, coal mines and power plants. Actually, 1.1 million Americans work in electric power generation through traditional fossil fuels. And let's finish with this. This is an industry will most likely survive. So thank you.